Another one of our opportunities to meet the legislatures, brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Council, Lignite Energy Council, focusing on an effort that is a chance to meet folks that have been newer to the legislature, part of the legislative process, and celebrate these folks that are citizen legislators and rolling up their sleeves and doing good work with the term limits passed by the voters. There will be a lot of new faces here in the coming years, so a good opportunity to meet some of the current members that are newer, that are ultimately going to be the leaders in the next session and the session after. And one of those is Senator Keith Boehm, who joins us today. He is a farmer, a rancher, small business owner, and also an important member of the 69th Legislative Assembly, member of the Industry and Business Committee. He's vice chair there, and the Energy and Natural Resources Committee as well. Senator Boehm, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
So I've told folks a little bit about you, but talk a little bit about your journey to the legislature.
Well, in 2022, or 2021 actually, I was asked to run. And we had a great team, and we were able to get voted in.
Why did you want to do this?
I really didn't from the beginning. It took them a few months to convince me. And finally, my wife and I, we decided that, yeah, we got to do this for our kids and grandkids.
So this is about the future more than anything.
It is. Everything's about the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. How's this session going for you?
It's fast and furious. You know, this is a marathon, and we're running it as a sprint. And you know, there's all kinds of things coming down the pike. There's property taxes, and then there's property taxes, and then there's property taxes. And there's also school choice. There's some abortion bills out there. There's some CO2 bills and so forth, but they're all coming down the pike at us.
Any of those that are a particular priority for you?
Well, I didn't mention the child protection bills, and that's an area that I'm really involved in.
What would you like to see happen there?
Well, we just want to protect our kids. We want to protect our future. Those kids, you know, and their minds and their hearts are the most precious thing we've got, and we want to protect them.
What in the way of proposals most excites you about better protecting kids?
Well, you know, our educational system, we're introducing some legislation there. We were, the last couple of days here, we've been working on human trafficking legislation and trying to get human trafficking education into our schools.
Yeah, makes good
for staff and parents.
Yeah, we think that's something that happens elsewhere, but it happens here, doesn't it?
It does. We heard testimony yesterday on that very subject, and we had a gentleman come in with an organization from out of state, and he's been in state doing lyceums for a while already, and he said that in almost every school that he's visited, he's had somebody come up to him and say, yeah, I've seen that.
Wow. You mentioned school choice as well, and that's something that's been dabbled with. I don't know how many sessions that conversation's gone on, and it seems like even when there's agreement, get to the finish line and it goes down. Last session, Governor Boehm vetoed what the legislature did, partially because he believed it wasn't enough in the way of school choice and options. What's your take on what ought to come out of this session?
Well, there's two separate school choice bills left. And they both dip into the funding, the funding formula, and give X amount to this group, to this group, to this group, and they're both valid. Which one's going to survive, I'm not sure, but it's just a matter of the amount that is going to be given out to whether there's one measure that even talks about giving $1,000 to public school students, and then X amount to this private schools, X amount to homeschool students, and so it's all being decided. It's got to be decided by Monday because that's when all appropriation bills are due.
And if you had the final say on it, do you believe that the tax dollars that this property tax property tax payers, the citizens of North Dakota pay, that are dedicated to education, that it's a good premise to say some of those dollars should be able to follow that student wherever they choose?
Absolutely, because there's lots of property owners that have children in the educational system, and they're paying property tax right now just for public.
So private should have an option to receive those dollars.
They should.
Yeah, makes sense. You serve on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. What will be the big issues for the energy industry?
Well, EOR, enhanced oil recovery, is going to be a big thing. We've got a plethora of game and fish bills. And as far as energy goes, like I said, we're going to be, working on the CO2 bill issue, enhanced oil recovery, funding of research. We've passed through some of those bills already, and everything in that arena is in flux. You mentioned EOR. And you mentioned CO2. Obviously, you need the CO2 to do the EOR. So give me your vision on how we get that CO2 to North Dakota. One particular federal policy says, hey, sequester it, and you get X amount. Another says, if you do enhanced oil recovery, you get another amount. But they all relate to getting CO2 to North Dakota. Is that something you support? I do, to a point. When we look at, the global climate arena, and the fact that we have to sequester CO2 to improve it. I'm not a big fan of that. But what we're experiencing on industry side is symptoms of that story. And industry will take advantage of that. And they should. But, we got to take into consideration with the property rights battle. That's a huge thing. And how we're going to navigate that is going to be decided in the courts, I believe. And, as far as needing CO2 out here, yes, we do need CO2, because when we look at the CO2 produced by North Dakota, it's minimal compared to the amount that we would need for enhanced oil recovery, which, mind you, is not secure science yet. They have not completed that process. It's probably at the, like Lynn Helm said, at the 85-yard line, and I think it's still there after 2 years. So they're working hard on that, and if they get that figured out, then we are going to need lots of CO2.
I'm with you on the whole global climate change. It's almost a religion to those people. But I look at CO2 helping ethanol plants get into sustainable aviation fuel. Our corn farmers are the feedstock of the ethanol, so they win. So I'm more interested in the price of corn than I am about checking any box on. There are other reasons to like you say, use that CO2 that we don't have enough here to do great things to, continue to look at all the things that oil and gas revenue does, or the energy industry does in providing affordable energy to our, make sure we have the most affordable energy in the entire United States per capita in this area. And if you talk to the coal industry, correct me if I'm wrong, you're on the committee, or you talk to the oil and gas industry, without a CO2 solution, they don't live to fight another day, right?
Not according to the most present EPA regulations. They are going to shut it down if they don't follow the rules. That could change with the present administration. They're talking about visiting the endangerment statute on CO2. If that would change everything. That would change the whole CO2 arena. That would just change everything as far as renewables go.
You mentioned earlier a concern over the sequestration piece of that. There again, though, if I talk to the lignite industry, they'll say the only way they literally are going to survive is to be able to check that box. In other words, whether you like sequestration or don't like sequestration, if we could have Project Tundra, if we could have a way to have our coal plants thrive rather than be on the chopping block, is that worth doing?
That is correct. That's the only way they're gonna survive is if they follow the 45Q sequestration. At some point they might be able to ship it out for EOR, but they're not there yet. And if Congress or whoever makes 45Q rules, would change that so that sequestration is the same as EOR, I think that would change everything in that arena.
You're also on the Industry and Business Committee, vice chair there. What are the big issues you're working on there?
Well, when it comes to industry and business, we deal with a lot of insurance issues. We also deal with, a number of legacy fund, special fund issues, as far as, these boards and all these special funds that are included in that arena. We kind of vote on regulations, we vote on boards, because the state holds all these boards and so forth. They hold the funds for them. Let's say you have the board of examiners and they all pay dues, and then the state holds those funds, and then of course they dispense them for that self-funded board.
The governor's testifying to say we need to greatly reduce the amount of boards and commissions we have. Just on efficiency, he told us, number one, a lot of state agencies already deal with these issues, so you have a little bit of a duplication there. Plus, in some cases, they're costly, even though you might volunteer to be on the board. Your per diems, your hotels, your meetings, your travel, transportation, meals, and all of that kind of stuff. Do you agree with them that we need a lot less of them?
Yes, we do, and we're looking at more than one where we're talking about doing that. And this is a commission, but an agency. We're looking at some legislation where the Securities Commission will be melded into the Insurance Commission. And there's oversight.
Interesting. Last one I want to ask you on business and industry. I had a conversation recently with South Dakota's governor, and there's a big debate on South Dakota on things like eminent domain and moratoriums on certain kind of projects or whatever. And he made the comment to me that that's changing the rules in the middle of the game. I haven't really heard that argument in North Dakota, but there's some effort here too. You mentioned the CO2 bills on the energy side. Some of them would sort of change the rules in the middle of the game of projects that are already proposed. Do we need to be careful in North Dakota not to fall into that trap?
Well, we need to look at what South Dakota is doing and what's going to be the result of it. And, should we do some of that here? I think on the property rights side, maybe, but that so many of those issues are going to end up being worked out in the courts. You've probably heard several instances where, this, an organization is taking this to court.
I think the Dakota Access Pipeline is still in court.
Right, and so that's where that's going to head. I don't know that we can, in the legislature, can do a lot of that, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of that's going to get litigated. I think the what's happening in South Dakota is going to get litigated, and you go to Texas and they're doing things the opposite of South Dakota, and that's going to get litigated. And it's sorry to say that that's the way it's going to go, but that's reality.
Thank you for the time. We appreciate getting to know you a little bit, and look forward to following your good work in the legislature.
Thank you. My pleasure.